Hey guys, well here's just a quick video of the aftermath. It is supposed to start raining here in about an hour or two, so I gotta get this thing off the trailer before I head into work. But she held up pretty good. I believe the final finish was about 8 out of 16, and ultimately there's a few things that contributed to me getting knocked out. One was the engine was getting really hot and just was losing some power on me. This fuel injection stuff is, I don't know, finicky at best, and just didn't want to work in our favor. But that I could deal with, having a little bit less power, no big deal. But in the back end, that's where all the issues happen, and we'll talk about that in a second. So the front is actually still mostly solid. The cord support is pushed in. This fender is kind of hooked, did a full bend in right here, and that got pushed in. The other side is still looking mostly straight. We got caught up on a couple other trucks and a few different situations with the front end, but that bumper is still looking pretty nice and solid and straight, so it'll definitely be seeing the Derby again. Just a lot of the normal scratches and stuff, and took a few hits back in here. Here's the back end. It did start to bend in like I had hoped a little bit, but this back frame rail really pushed in and actually made the leaf pack move that way, that direction. I want to say it's moved in, about a foot farther that way right now than it's supposed to be. So obviously that has messed up the location of where the rear end is actually bolted right now. But what knocked me out was on the other side. Now, as you can see, we actually had to bolt it, and then we also wrapped a whole bunch of strapping around the rear end to hold it into position, so that way I could drive it up on the trailer. But what had happened was, I don't even know if you can see it with all the strapping. You probably can't, unfortunately. The front U-bolt that holds the rear end on, that one snapped. It completely broke on one side and twisted over. And then the back one, when that happened, that loosened right up. And those U-bolts actually slid right off the plates that were there for mounting and moved the rear end all the way back to, it was already bumping up against this clamp bar. There's some residue marks. You can kind of see it on there here where the center of it was. So yeah, once that happened, between the spring bending on that side coming in a foot and then this moving back better part of 6 inches to a foot, this whole rear end was like way, pitched differently. And so right now we got a pretty nasty dog track. You can see I drove it straight on the trailer. We're rubbing right here, and I got at least a good 6 to 8 inches up there at the front. So we got about that much lean and dog track going on. And then when it was way off, this thing was way pitched out, and quite honestly, once that happened, it was just binding up right at the yoke here at the rear end, at the U-joint. Actually, not the yoke. The yoke, it looks to be okay, and the transmission doesn't look to be of any damage, or the transfer case, I guess in this case, doesn't look to be damaged at all. But the U-joint here at the back, it was just getting bound up too much and it couldn't spin. You can actually, I don't know how well it's going to show up in the video, but in person here you can see there's some rub marks right there where there's some clean metal, and unfortunately that is signs of that being at such an extreme angle that those bolts were actually hitting the drive shaft. The bolts on the rear end holding the U-joint in place were rubbing against the drive shaft, and it was just too much for this to turn. And so you have all that working together, and then on top of that, this tire went flat, the one that was in this location. So that was all she wrote. I just couldn't move. I was able to stay in the event longer than I anticipated, I have to admit, to some degree, once I started having this issue. A couple moments I was able to throw it into reverse and get the wheel spinning enough that I was able to back up and make a couple hits. I did not want to drive forward for crap, but we still managed to keep into the event up to about the 8th place spot. My brother also ran, and you'll see the video from that, and he actually did better. He, I think, finished 5th out of the 16, so that was pretty cool for him. And yeah, I mean, from the sides, I really didn't take a whole lot of side damage. I did a pretty good job of keeping the truck located well on the track, and for the most part a lot of the damage was self-inflicted. It was not from other people hitting me, other than this back end was, obviously I didn't account for that breaking loose. The body, where we had redone the mounts in the back, held up real nice. Those are both still attached, and it bent the body with the frame. If I didn't have that, who knows how this thing would have bent. It probably would have been really funky and would have been done really quick. The plan was to use the front end, but you know how that is. Sometimes you get a good shot with the rear end and you still take it, and apparently this rear end just didn't want to hold together as well as I hoped. And actually, now that I'm talking about it, I want to point out one other area. So obviously this whole spring bending is a big problem, and part of that is also right up in here. I don't know how I forgot to mention this one, but you can see I got a really nasty kink here in the rear frame, and it's obviously right in front of the rear end. So I personally am thinking this truck is done. Maybe someone that's more ambitious would be willing to take the time to fix it, but we're not in this thing much for money, and a lot of the parts are actually stock parts, other than some tires and batteries and gas tank and that sort in the front bumper, and maybe a couple tires. But you know, it's just usual stuff. For the most part, all the running gear, that's all stock, and the truck itself was fairly stockly built, you know, just the normal modifications. So I got 3 runs out of her, and I might be posting this thing up for sale here and just to see if there's any interest, because quite honestly, if you know, I can't sell it and no one really wants it, I don't want to have to store it all winter for nothing. But gonna get it off the trailer here and get into the shop, because I don't know what all parts I need to pull, and if it's gonna be raining, I don't want this thing sitting out in the rain. But there you go, guys. That's the aftermath from the Fulton County Derby with the Suburban. So look forward to any future updates to this thing, as well as we next week are going to be running the fresh 1986 Chevy white pickup out to the Williams County Fair. So we're excited about that. So until the next video, talk to you later, guys.